Alrighty, hey, now let's actually get in and start working in Canvas and teach you how to do your week one classwork. Really important that you get started on this work because this classwork, this first classwork, is really an introduction to the course. So this is, of course, really important, right, for you to understand. So let me just start by going over. I have my student account already logged into Canvas here. I'm good to go. I have my account, and just give you a little tour here. If you come here at the beginning, the dashboard, if you were taking multiple courses, it would show up. The dashboard is here. You click to come into the course. So this is the beginning, the starting of the course, and it's really something called a module, not that you need to know that. So each week will be listed here, the items that you have to do. Now there is this wonderful Canvas orientation that's provided by Canvas that I definitely recommend you check out, because the more about Canvas you know, the better your experience is going to be overall. Okay, so we have announcements, which I think I have nothing up there right now. Oh, I have a test, so I'll have something more up there by the time you get in here. There's the all-important syllabus that we talked about in that welcome video. So it is here, and then below here is also all the items that are scheduled for grading. So these are all the work that you have to do. And then this link is also available as an external link because it is not basically, it is a Google Doc. Okay. So then the grade, of course, is where you would always check. You'll see my feedback, and we grade. So I grade, and that's one of the first things you can know is that I grade pretty much every day of the week. So Monday through Friday, I grade first thing in the morning. And ultimately, when this class gets going, you have 4 items per week. It may sound like a lot, but it's really just a matter of organizing your time and making sure you're on task. Okay, so let's just keep going here. Conferences is something I don't think we're going to use, so we should be okay there. We're going to use something called Google Chat, something I'll talk about later. So the other thing here is the calendar. The calendar is really helpful. It actually in Blackboard was what I ended up having be my main page when you come into the course. But for you all, because we're not using Blackboard, we're going to use Canvas to do the similar thing, it's just it's located a little differently. So just go down into calendar to find that, right? So that you can see the semester starts on the 11th. We have a first item due, which is the classwork. So now I'm going to get into talking about that. But you can also see just by looking through here, and what's kind of a little funky is the second week of the semester we have a holiday. So just know that anytime there's a holiday, I move the items due, if it falls on that, to the next date. And the other thing you can know is that due dates fall on Monday and Thursday nights through the entire semester. It doesn't matter which section you're taking it in. Okay. So, and the inbox is really your way to communicate with me. You're welcome. Matter of fact, I encourage you to use this to send me messages, which is awesome. Just a great way to do it. And in our week one hands-on, we'll actually fill in this image here. But for now, let's go back here. So now, the reason I think I don't actually have to do a lot of training on Canvas is just intuitive. I think it just works. I think that's what students have told me. I just finished teaching an advanced class online with Canvas, and most everyone who used it said it's just easier than Blackboard, which is really good news. Okay, so now that we're here, let's actually see what we have to do. So again, you can either look at that calendar, or you can just come into here and you see week one, you see when the items are due, you see how much it's worth, and again, but in a minute I'll show you more specifically what that means. But let's go into here. So week one classwork. So here's the steps that you need to do. Okay, so the first part of this really is just training you, giving you a little canvas, talking about classwork. This is the video I'm doing right now, but most importantly in this document we're going to talk about your Gmail account, because you have to have that. And the reason you have to have that is we're going to use Google Docs. So Google Docs is what you're going to use to take notes during classwork. It's what you're going to use to report your MyIT lab scores. It's what you're going to use for any kind of sharing, any kind of image sharing, which you will do quite a bit. So Gmail is required. So what I thought I would do, and it was actually a good exercise, is I went ahead, which, by the way, we'll talk about in a little bit too. You know, I'm using a Mac in this case, if you don't know. You can use Mac, PC, Linux. Linux will be a little bit more of a challenge, but Mac and PC, you know, you should be fine. There will be 2 times that you will need to have a Windows or a Windows VirtualBox, which is something I'll talk about, how to run Windows virtually if you're on a Mac. And even if you're running Windows, that's fine. It's still good for you to know how to do this kind of stuff, but I'll save that discussion for a little later. So I went ahead and set up a new Gmail account, right? So you just go to gmail.com and you set that up. So in this first video, what I'm going to show you is automatically how to jump into, and I'm going to go ahead and make the screen bigger again a little bit here, is that there's two ways you can get to Drive. So Drive is Google's cloud document service, right? So you can either, once you're logged in, just type drive.google.com. That's one way. Or you can come over here to all the little dots and then just choose Google Drive as well. So now that I'm in here, cool. So you might wonder, what do I, and by the way, look at this, 15 gigs free, just getting the account, which is totally awesome. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you do this. I'm going to have you do new, and I'm going to have you create folders. I'm going to have you create two folders. One's going to be shared with Rio Waller. Okay, create that. And then I'm going to have you create another one, another folder, and this one's going to be shared, just shared with everyone. Okay, so now we have two folders. Okay, so let's be clear. So why do I have you do these two folders? Because I've now been teaching using Google Docs for a year, and one of the biggest things that I see students do is they get confused about what to share and how to share it. So what I've done here is we've created two folders. I'm going to show you how to set the permissions on the folder, and by setting the permissions on the folder, anything you place into that folder will hold those permissions. Okay, so here's so you'll have two in this case to start with. Now, by the way, you could have done in this case another directory called CIT15 and then placed those two directories in there. That would have been totally okay. Probably a better organization than what I did here. Okay, but it's really up to you, because you may already be using Google Docs, and that would actually make more sense if you have a lot of docs already in there, that you create one that says CIT15 and then go from there. Okay, so let's go into the shared with Rio. This probably is going to make sense. What I'm about to do is, so everything you put in this folder will be shared with me automatically as long as you do this. I'm just going to go up here once. I'm going to hit add. Okay, and it's going to bring up a little dialog, and I'm going to say, so my Gmail, riowaller@gmail. And then you can send a message, but no, not a big deal, right? So the other thing is you have to give me editability. Cool, so go ahead and send that. Now I'm going to get an email showing that I now have access to this directory within your Google Doc. Okay, and the other item in here is shared with everyone. That will go into, we'll hit share, and in this case we'll make it shareable. Okay, good. So now anything you place in that doc will be shareable with anyone that you give the link to. So there'll be some items, and you'll see this on the instruction when I say it. I'll either say share with me or share with everyone. Just share with everyone. Okay, so one of those two options. Now I'm going to hit done here, right? So now you can also see, and I'm going to go back here, that each of those folders now have a little icon on them, and that indicates that they are shared. So now let's go back to Canvas. Okay, so now I'll go back to Canvas here. So that's what we've done, is we've set up the shared with Rio, right? And I went ahead and I didn't do that in the instruction, but it's good that I walked through it. I went ahead and set up the other folder with you as well, right? So now what you're going to do is you're going to create a file within the shared with Rio called Classwork. Okay, so by the way, I'm using Firefox here as a different account, or a different browser in that account, but I recommend using Chrome. So let's actually go ahead and go in here, double click in here, and I'm going to do new, create a Google Doc, and it says, and this is perfect, it says creating this item will have the same sharing permissions as the folder, and that's exactly what you want. Okay, and then it says you can browse templates. No, you don't have to. But notice up here at the top, the document right here is untitled. So I want you to call it Classwork. Okay, cool. So now what you're going to do is you're going to start taking notes. So actually, let's go ahead and get started. Class, and let's just do week 1 here. And let's make this a heading. What I like is a title, title, and then notes. Okay, so You might ask yourself, well, what have we had notes about? Well, we've already had a discussion of Google Docs, so you could have that in your notes. We've had a discussion of Canvas, you could have that in your notes. We've had a discussion even before, if you remember the welcome video, I want you to include some of those notes too, like when is materials required. And actually, that is something I forgot to totally be clear about, is when you're going to need them. So let's answer that in just a minute, okay? But going back to the doc real quick. So now this is where you take notes, right? So students often ask me, well, how much notes do you need? Well, what I really want to know is how well did you watch the video? And it's not that you need a ton of notes, you just need to, I need to know you have watched the whole thing. Okay, so you're gonna, at this point we have, this is video 1. Okay, so now you'll have, in matter of fact, I'll probably have a better title for that in a minute, but video 1, you'll have some notes on that. Okay, so let's go back. So now what I've done is I've shown you, let me go back to Canvas. So what I've done is I walked you through this all the way, and now you're watching video, okay? And now you're watching video about how to do classwork, okay? And you've watched already here about how to do Google Doc. So let me answer that question that I had for you before that I knew some of you may have had. So in this case, the question would be, when do you have to have the materials for this class? So to answer that, there's a couple of ways. You could either go to calendar, and in calendar you could look at what's coming. Again, I got to move forward because we're not at the beginning yet. And you'd have to understand, okay, we have classwork, that's what we're working on now. We have attendance. Oh, by the way, you have, and I'll talk about attendance in a little bit. And then we have a holiday, and then we have hands-on. So this doesn't, if you look at those, that doesn't look like it needs a textbook. Another hands-on, no textbook. Week 2 classwork, no textbook. Oh, chapter 1 textbook, okay? So the answer to the question, and put this in your notes, when are the materials required? They're required on the 25th of January, but I definitely would not wait, because that's when you have 2 items that you need to have the textbook here, okay? And then the My IT Lab, so you have your chapter 1 there. Okay, so put that in your notes, because that's an important part. So let's see, we've talked about that. I've talked about Canvas. Let me go back to the beginning. So we're taking notes here, right? So what we're doing, let me go ahead and convert over to my, so the question might be here, how do I get back? Well, there's the classwork, right? So there's our notes that we're taking. Okay, so you should have, at this point, you should have several notes that you've taken around the material that I've covered. So what I'm going to do is, I think that's probably enough for this video that at least gets you started. I'm going to go ahead and stop this one, start another one, and in that one we'll talk a little more detail about some of the other aspects of this class, talk to you more about how this document is going to work, and then ultimately when we're done, I think with the next video I'll actually show you how to submit it. Okay? Peace out.